pretty steep here. I thought going always into a nice forest with nice oaks and spruce in small mountains was becoming a bit boring. It's too natural. There are too many mushrooms there. I thought it might be actually more interesting to go in a completely different ecosystem, heavily anthropized, and I thought what best to do that than a good old mine heap. This is where we are now. We are on a good old mine heap that is about 30 years old and about, I think, more than 50 meters tall. It's a pretty big one, and the mining activity was mining charcoal. Therefore it's a heap of charcoal mining residues. And the question is, will we find any mushroom there? It's supposed to be pretty polluted, right? So what kind of mushrooms we'll see there? Is it the same mushrooms that we will see like in cities, for example? So only species that are adapted to the urban environment, lots of, used to get lots of nitrogen, for example. Or is it something else? Will we see other types of species? How will be the diversity in mushrooms there? Probably lower, because the environment is very different, it's polluted. Will we have only stress-tolerant species? Will we have only pollution-tolerant species? Will we have higher diversity because of a mixture of local species and stress-tolerant species? Who knows? Let's venture together in the forest to see what we find. This is actually beautiful. Who would think that we are in an area that was heavily industrialized only 30 years ago? I just feel like anywhere in a small hill. Fantastic. Let's move into. Did I miss something there? Oh yeah. Wait. Oh no, what a disappointment. No, it's not a disappointment at all. Oh, cool. Nice, beautiful. You wanted some spines, I will get you some spines. Well, let's have a look at our environment. Pine forest, so pines everywhere. And a few other tree species. Birch. This is Pholiota squarrosa. There are many species of mushrooms that grow on stumps, on deadwood, and in troops, like this one. But there's only one genus that is so scaly all over the place. You see scales here, scales also on the stem. Ah, this is fantastic. You see here, voila. You see very, very scaly in the stipe, in the cap, and you see actually here is the annulus. That is right now the mushroom is a bit too young, so it is protecting the gills. And under it, you see the gills now, they are white. The color of the mushroom is like honey color, or even a bit less warm than honey, so but pretty, yeah, pretty red. And the smell is actually pretty nice. It's pretty aromatic. Yeah, a bit like flowers. Voilà, it's called Pholiota squarrosa. Squarrosa means scaly. This mushroom is actually a very good degrader of wood, and therefore it's normal to find it here. Even if the soil is polluted, you will, as long as you have some plants that grow on it and that produce wood, you will be able to find this species, Pholiota squarrosa. Not edible. What else do we find? Our friend Amanita muscaria that we have seen already on the last video. Is it surprising? Not at all. This mushroom is actually associated with trees. It grows in symbiosis with tree roots. And here it's actually a very faithful companion of birch. So if we have birch, we have Amanita muscaria. They always come together. And just besides of Amanita muscaria, look at this, how beautiful this is. What can this be? It's a Mycena, I think, but which species of Mycena? Yes, mycologists are still useful to something. You know that there are plenty of apps nowadays that are able to identify, based on artificial intelligence, that are able to identify quite well a lot of plant species, a lot of insect species, and they also perform better and better on mushroom species. But they don't always work. That's a good news, and that's good news, and that's exactly what I found here on this species that we just found. It identifies it at Psatirella conopilus, and it's not. This is not Psatirella conopilus because the gills are just too pale for it. Well, for once, identification by this artificial intelligence program is not working. Oof. Otherwise, it's a bit depressive. Huh? You study many years, you are passionate by mushrooms all your life, and actually an app is performing better than you. But for Diego, I'm not sure. Right, I've been spending the last 10 minutes on trying to identify this stuff. I think we have here actually not a Mycena, but maybe a Galerina species. Alright, the color of the gills. See that the mushroom, if I stop vibrating, there's coffee. You see the gills, they are pretty much brown. The edge of the gills is not specifically red or a darker color. Then you might not have a Mycena, but instead a Galerina species. And Galerina species, they usually have a ring, and this one doesn't have a ring. You see that the stipe is completely ringless. Also, it is a little bit powdery. You see that this little white color around, so it has this powder around. All of that makes me think that we have Galerina vitiiformis, because of the color that is a warm rust color, where the margin is very striated, so that the gills are of the same color, so ochre color, rusty ochre color, like this, you can see. And at the stipe is powdery, doesn't smell anything, and you find that in mosses. Galerina species are often found in mosses, and you see how much moss we have around. Galerina vitiiformis doesn't smell anything, absolutely nothing, and like all Galerinas, it is very toxic, or at least you should be careful with all Galerina species. So first of all, it's very small, and second of all, it could be lethal, so we don't eat it. Galerina vitiiformis. Is it surprising to find it here? Again, no. If mosses grow there, then this mushroom can grow as well, whether the soil is polluted or not. How resting it is to be in nature and listening to the sounds of the forest. Yeah, the soil pollution is gone, but not the noise pollution. Noise pollution is still here. Interesting illustration here. This is Amanita muscaria. Don't get fooled by the fact that it doesn't have flakes on the top of the cap. Flakes can be washed by rain, and sometimes they can even get even paler than that. So color is red to orange, and sometimes there is no flakes. But it's Amanita muscaria. You can recognize also the stipe, the annulus, and the marginated base of stipe. Amanita muscaria. Look how shallow is the soil. This is mining material, and the moss is just growing on top of it. We have like 1 centimeter of moss, of soil on top of it. Oh, excellent. What is this? Yeah, you recognize it. It's our friend Bacillus involutus. If I would touch the gills here, they will become brown in a few minutes. Bacillus involutus. And another one there. Not surprising to find them either, because they're often associated with trees. They are actually symbiotic and growing also in association with trees, just like Amanita muscaria. So as long as you have a tree, and here a pine, you can have Bacillus involutus. Bacillus involutus. Here, there, and there. This is a Mycena because it has a conical hat, a very long and gracile, elegant stipe, so elegant silhouette overall, and also the gills are white, contrary to the Galerina that we've seen just before. You see here that the gills are completely white. The stipe is fibrous, especially at the base. Very good indication that you are dealing with Mycena filopes, which means the Mycena with fibrilous stipe. And the best way to identify this one is to smell it. When it's older, it smells like iodine, and it's a good way to identify it. Only for the pleasure of identification, because you're not gonna eat it. It's too small, and I'm not even sure it's actually not toxic. I don't think people manage to collect enough to get intoxicated, probably. Yeah, it's found actually not in mosses, but it's found in forests, on dead wood, dead branches, sometimes on cork. So again, not a big surprise to find it here. There is some plant material, and therefore there is some Mycena filopes. And of course, many of you are probably wondering, oh, but that's great. If there are some mushrooms on terrils, then we can also eat them. Yes and no, be careful. It's very likely containing heavy metals, because, well, all mine heaps actually contain to some extent heavy metals. You also know that mushrooms have the tendency to bioaccumulate these heavy metals. What you will eat is actually a concentrated heavy metal substance. Do you want to do that? I'm not sure. You might like heavy metal, but more as a music. That's a funny one. It's the first time you hear that, I'm sure. So heavy metals. So on the terrils, you don't eat mushrooms coming from a terril. It's bad news for your liver. Voilà, that's the first little species that we meet. This is Lepiota brunneoincarnata. First of all, it's a very small mushroom, 5 centimeters tall, and it has a cap that is very scaly. You see that the center of the cap is making this kind of nipple. Voilà, you see that the center of the cap. So the center of the cap has this sort of nipple in the middle. And this nipple is actually in between the black and the wine color, brown, winey, black color, lots of scales that are also of the same color, like dark blackish, white gills that are free. It's, in fact, that's why it's a Lepiota. You know, very few species have free gills like this. The stipe is the same. It has also these scales, exactly the same color, a bit winey color. And the smell is actually like the one of an average mushroom. Of the mushroom, the flesh is kind of pale white. The gills are pale as well. It comes in troops in moss. Lepiota brunneoincarnata, coming in troops in sandy soils. Here it's not a sandy soil, but it's the same environment, as the soil is very shallow, just like in a dune. That it is a lethal species. Don't eat it. Just like all small Lepiota species, it's lethal. So don't eat it, don't even show it, it's extremely toxic. And I will actually wipe my hands properly before looking at the next mushroom.